Hello, friends. Today, I want to share something special with you. This story can change the way you think and feel about learning English. William Shakespeare is known as the greatest writer in history. He understood the human heart better than anyone. You may know his famous works like Romeo and Juliet, Hamlet, Macbeth, and Othello. These stories show real human emotions: love, power, betrayal, and ambition. His impact on the English language is huge. Many common words and expressions come from him. But Shakespeare did not come from a rich family, and he never went to a top university. He was just an ordinary boy who became a legend. So, if you are learning English and sometimes struggle, remember, Shakespeare also started from zero, just like you. This is a story of effort, passion, and endless creativity. So sit back, listen carefully, and enjoy. This story will not only improve your English listening skills, it will also fill your heart with motivation. On a cold April day in 1564, in a small English town called Stratford-upon-Avon, a baby boy was born. His parents, John and Mary Shakespeare, held him in their arms, not knowing that one day he would change the world. His name was William Shakespeare. Stratford-upon-Avon was a quiet town with narrow streets, wooden houses, and a calm river running through the center. People lived simple lives. They were farmers, merchants, or craftsmen. William's father, John Shakespeare, was a glove maker. He made and sold high-quality leather gloves. In the town market, William's father was known as a hard-working and respected man. His mother, Mary Arden, came from a wealthy farming family. She was kind, strong, and full of love for her children. William was the third of 8 children. Their house was always full of noise, laughter, talking, and the sounds of everyday life. But William was different. He was curious. He watched everything carefully. He listened to people's conversations, their laughter, their tears. He didn't know it yet, but this curiosity would one day make him the greatest playwright in history. There was no TV, no phones, and no internet at that time. People found entertainment in stories. Traveling theater groups would visit the town and perform in the streets. Young William watched them with wide, amazed eyes. He loved old legends, local tales, and stories of heroes from the past. Every story made his imagination stronger and more alive. At the age of 7, William went to school. The school was a small, simple building with wooden benches and a strict teacher. But the things he learned there helped shape his future. At school, William studied Latin, history, poetry, and literature. Latin was the language of scholars, and young William became good at it. He read great stories from ancient Rome and Greece and learned from writers like Ovid, Plutarch, and Virgil. Their words stayed in his mind and later inspired his plays. But William was not just a quiet book lover. He loved nature. He walked through green fields, watched the river, and listened to the birds. He played with his friends, ran through the streets, and enjoyed life like any other boy. But inside him, there was something special, a deep hunger for words, stories, and meaning. Just when life seemed normal, a big problem appeared. William's father, once a respected merchant, began to face financial trouble. He had borrowed money for his business, but things went wrong. This meant the family had less money. It was a difficult time. Some days, even buying food was hard. William saw the stress in his father's eyes and heard the worry in his mother's voice. He learned that life is not always stable or easy. But instead of losing hope, he observed everything carefully. He felt emotions deeply, and he learned that life is full of ups and downs, something he would later explore in many of his plays. Even as a child, William had a special talent for words. He created small, simple stories.
He wrote small, rhyming poems. He loved acting, played different roles, and entertained his friends with stories. William Shakespeare was growing up quickly. By the time he was 14, he had read dozens of books, heard hundreds of stories, and watched the performances of traveling actors who visited his small town. And then, something happened that changed his life forever. When William turned 18, he was no longer a little boy. He was a young man. And like many young people, he fell in love. Her name was Anne Hathaway, a beautiful, intelligent, and independent woman. But there was something unusual about their love story. Anne was 26 years old, which meant she was 8 years older than William. At that time, it was not common for a young man to marry an older woman. But love does not follow rules, and William loved Anne deeply. Then, something unexpected happened. Anne became pregnant before the wedding. In those days, this was a serious matter. Society had strict rules, and a baby born outside of marriage could bring shame to both families. So, William and Anne had to marry quickly. 6 months after the wedding, Anne gave birth to their first child, a daughter named Susanna. 2 years later, in 1585, Anne had twins, a boy named Hamnet and a girl named Judith. William Shakespeare was only 21 years old, yet he was already a husband and the father of 3 children. Life was moving fast, but there was one big problem. How would he support his family? His father's business was still struggling, and William himself had no steady job and no secure income. He knew he had to find a way to earn money. But what could he do? He moved to London. London was full of energy, ambition, and opportunity. It was the heart of English theater, crowded with actors, writers, and poets, all competing for fame. Shakespeare arrived in London with no money, no connections, and no experience. But he had talent, determination, and a deep love for storytelling. He started as an actor, watched people closely, and soon began writing his own plays. Shakespeare soon realized he could write plays that made people think and feel deeply. By 1592, he was becoming known, though some writers mocked him, but he worked even harder. In 1593, the plague closed all theaters, leaving him without work. So he wrote poetry instead, creating 2 famous poems that made him wealthy and respected, even by Queen Elizabeth. When theaters reopened in 1594, he joined the Lord Chamberlain's men, writing and acting in powerful plays like Romeo and Juliet, Macbeth, Hamlet, and Othello. By the late 1590s, he was one of England's most famous playwrights. In 1599, he and his group built the Globe Theatre, a large open-air theater where he created masterpieces that are still performed more than 400 years later. The Globe became Shakespeare's dream home, where he created masterpieces like Hamlet, Macbeth, Othello, and Julius Caesar. These plays made people think and feel deeply, not just watch for fun. His success brought great wealth. By the early 1600s, he was one of England's richest playwrights, earning money from the Globe Theatre, selling his works, royal support, and buying property like New Place. But fame and money weren't enough. Shakespeare wanted something even greater. In 1603, an event changed his life forever. Queen Elizabeth I, who had supported Shakespeare for many years, passed away. King James I took the throne. At first, no one knew if he liked theater, but Shakespeare didn't need to worry. The new king loved his plays. King James invited Shakespeare's group to perform for him and gave them a royal title, the King's Men. This was the highest honor, making them the official actors of the royal court. Shakespeare had risen from a glovemaker's son to England's most famous playwright. Between 1603 and 1611, he wrote some of his deepest works, including powerful tragedies like King Lear. Shakespeare wrote his final and deepest masterpieces, King Lear, Macbeth, and The Tempest. His writing became more emotional and wiser because he had lived through success, pain, and betrayal. By 1611, he had everything. He was famous, wealthy, respected by kings, and known across England as the greatest playwright in history. But in 1613, he made a surprising choice. He retired. He left busy London and returned to Stratford, missing the quiet town, the nature, and most of all, his family. Shakespeare returned to his home, New Place, in Stratford because he missed his family and wanted a peaceful life. He spent his days walking in his garden, reading by the fire, and talking with his daughters. Even in retirement, his mind was still full of stories. In 1616, after a dinner with friends, he suddenly became ill. A few days later, on April 23, 1616, at age 52, Shakespeare passed away, but his words lived on. Before his death, he wrote a short poem warning people not to disturb his grave. These lines became his final message and still protect his resting place today. Shakespeare left a powerful legacy. His words could inspire, heal, and change the world. When he died, people in Stratford gathered to say goodbye. He was buried in the same town where he was born, in a simple grave with his own words on it. But his death was only the beginning of his legend. His plays were still performed, his books were still read, and his name spread across the world. For centuries, his words have inspired millions, and many of his famous expressions are still used today. His life shows us one thing: words have power, the power to inspire, to heal, and to change the world. Dear friends, if these videos help you learn English, please like, comment, and support the channel. And don't forget to subscribe and click the bell so you don't miss the next lessons. Thank you so much.